Hey guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope that your new year is going absolutely wonderfully and has been everything that you want it to be. Super excited to just talk today a little bit about 5 books that changed my faith and have impacted me throughout my life. I am a huge reader. I love to read, and I think I kind of believe that if I could just consume every book, then I could be perfect. Or at least a lot better person than I am now. So I'm always trying to read to grow and to learn more. And so I want to share some of the books with you, and I have my little stack of books here to share with you today, and I'm super excited. So let's jump into it. All right, so I'm going to be kind of going through these in order of when I read them in my faith. It's going to kind of go timeline style, though some at the end kind of coincided with each other, but we'll start pretty early. I actually read this first book in middle school, so it's been a while, but it still sticks with me to this day when I think about books that really were a catalyst for my faith when I first started following Jesus. I think of Crazy Love by Francis Chan. Now, I don't think this is the first copy that I ever had, but even this one is pretty well loved, as you can see. This book was given to me by my youth pastor in middle school, who also helped bring me to Christ and get my faith started following Jesus. But Crazy Love is written by Francis Chan. Francis Chan is a pastor. He was a pastor at a big church out in California for many years. I think that's what he was doing when he first wrote Crazy Love. He is someone to admire. He has spent years as a missionary in the underground church in China and throughout Asia serving. So he kind of disappeared off the map for a while doing that. He's written some other books, but Crazy Love is definitely his most popular. And this book is all about, it kind of walks you through why God is so amazing. So I think that's a good foundation for any Christian. Like, why is God worthy of our worship? So he starts there, and then he basically says, if God really is all of these things that I am saying that he is in this book, so wonderful, so awesome, such an amazing creator, then he is so worthy of our lives and our worship and everything that we have. And so Crazy Love is about the love God has for us, but also the way that we should love others. So I highly recommend this book. It's hardcore. It will push you. It will challenge you a lot in your faith. Like, I think whether you're a new Christian or you've been following Jesus for a while, this book can really help you remember or start to realize why God is so amazing, and then how worthy he is of our lives because of who he is. So number one, the first book that really started to change my faith, Crazy Love by Francis Chan. Now, this next book is actually a little teeny tiny book. This is The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. So there's a lot of editions of this book, but usually it's in this tiny little format, very easy to read and get through. So this book was actually written in the 1600s. So Brother Lawrence was a monk, a Christian monk in the 1600s who just loved God and had dedicated his life to spending life with God. Originally, these were letters and conversations with a friend who he was talking to about what it looks like to spend everyday life with God. And so that is what this book is full of. It is small, but it could still take you a while to get through because it is dense. It is very deep, and there's a lot here in these little pages. Brother Lawrence, to his friend, is basically instructing them how to spend every moment reflecting on and resting in the presence of Jesus. Brother Lawrence's idea was that time spent with God is not just prayer or church or in a monastery or whatever, but in all the little moments of life, how to practice the presence of God when doing chores, washing the dishes, cooking, what it means to constantly turn our hearts back to Jesus. And this book for me was an answer as I was starting out my faith. So I guess I read this in early high school. I know that if God is who he says he is, and he's as amazing as I think that he is, it has to be for more than just these isolated parts of my life that I think of as like churchy or godly or whatever. This book helped me to start seeing God in every moment of life. So taking my faith and really expanding it into every moment, abiding in Jesus, resting in him, constantly turning my heart back toward him. This is a little one, could be a good place to start if you're not a big reader and you want something short. Highly recommend. Even though it was written in the 1600s, it has been translated and updated, so don't worry, it's not written with like these and thous and stuff like that. It is easy to understand, easy to read. Highly recommend. That's what I'm going to say about all of these because they're all my favorite books. So I'll say that every time. All right. So this next book I read my first year of college, and it is very near and dear to me. This book is Celebration of Discipline by Richard Foster. Now, Richard Foster is a pastor in the Quaker tradition, so a little bit different than most of us grow up. So this book was actually first released in the 70s. So while the last book written in the 1600s, this book is much more recent. This book was originally published in 1978. Richard Foster, again, a pastor, he was a student of Dallas Willard, who I think most people consider kind of the American father of the resurgence of the spiritual disciplines, at least in the American church. But chapter by chapter, he takes you through the most common spiritual disciplines, how to practice them, why to practice them, how to connect with God through them. As the book title can kind of tell you, he is taking back the word discipline. So many of us, when we think of discipline, we really think of punishment, like spankings as a kid or being put in timeout or something like that. And he's saying that discipline, that bringing ourselves under the lordship of Jesus is something to rejoice in and to be enjoyed and cherished and treasured. And that's what he helps you do in this book. This book is so beautifully written. So many moments that you will just be left reading the same line over and over again, just like soaking in the richness of it. This book I actually read for a class my freshman year of college in a class called Foundations of Spiritual Formation, which was all about how to grow in your relationship with Jesus. And again, up until that point, my faith had much surrounded church and maybe just like a 5-minute devotional in the morning, which both of those things are great and wonderful tools of spiritual formation. But this, again, helped me dive deeper when I was asking and wanting for more in my relationship with God. What does it look like to fast, to practice silence and solitude, to practice simplicity, like having less earthly things as a expression of your faith? So many different things, and each chapter, it breaks things down super simply for you so that, you know, if you are like never heard of spiritual disciplines or gotten into this at all, this is a great place to start. It goes through meditation, study, worship, celebration, all of these things as a way to grow closer to the Lord. A must read for any Christian, I think, will help you grow so much deeper in your faith. Then this next book is a little bit more recent. So that last one was early college for me. The last 2 books I actually read after college, really in the last 2 or 3 years. I am going to start with The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. As you can see, this is the book that I originally read, and there's lots of notes and sticky notes in here from things that I wanted to remember. This book fundamentally changed my adult life and what it looks like to follow Jesus for me. As you can tell from the title, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, John Mark Comer is writing about what it looks like to follow Jesus in a world that is so fast-paced, that is always pushing us to the next thing, that fills up our calendars to the brim every single second of our lives. How do you find God in the midst of that? And basically what he's saying is you can't. That's the point, that one of the enemy's tools is to keep us so busy and so overwhelmed that we really cannot experience life with God. Now, it's not impossible, of course. God meets us in all different seasons and ways of life and all of those things. But what John Mark Comer does is he pulls on the wisdom of Christians throughout the ages, because as much as this feels like a modern issue, it's not just a modern issue. People have always been busy and overwhelmed and in seasons where they struggle to get time with God. And this is a really good reminder of what it looks like to slow down, rest in Jesus, to remember that he said his yoke is easy and his burden is light. And if we are not experiencing abundant life, then maybe we aren't doing things the right way. This book will take you deeper than just like, what are the big sins in my life that I need to get rid of? But it really takes you down to the very structure of your life, the very makeup of your day-to-day schedule and how that impacts your life with Jesus. And it will challenge you so much. There's so much in here that I am still trying to figure out what that looks like for my life. If you have this sense that I did when I read this book, that things are just not the way that they should be, then this book is a great place to start. If you are absolutely not a reader, but you still want to get this content, you can also find John Mark Comer on wherever you listen to podcasts. He does a sermon series by the same title, and he basically goes over all the content in this book. John Mark Comer is a pastor, a teacher. He used to be one of the lead pastors at Bridgetown out in Portland, Oregon. Now he's mainly teaching and writing for his organization called Practicing the Way, and I just absolutely adore him. Everything he puts out, I just gobble it up. I love him. One thing I really appreciate about John Mark is that he takes really ancient resources and makes them super consumable and easy to understand. Check it out. Check out his sermons, his other books. His other book, God Has a Name, is another favorite of mine. I am dying to read Garden City. Some of my friends are reading right now saying it's life-changing, so got to get my hands on that one next, but this is where I would start if you're new to him. All right, so this last book, I know all of these books are special to me, but this one may have the biggest everyday impact on me. And if I could only get you to read one book in this pile, it would be this one. So here we go. The book is Gentle and Lowly by Dane Ortlund, which has an absolutely beautiful cover. I'll hold that up so you can see it a little bit better. It's like this beautiful pastoral scene of like sheep in the countryside. It's like, this is a work of art, absolutely. Dane Ortlund is a Presbyterian pastor. He draws on primarily the Puritans in this book, but the name Gentle and Lowly comes from the one I am statement that Jesus made in his life on earth, which is actually from Matthew 11, declares that he is gentle and lowly at heart. And Dane basically makes the case that if that's the one thing that Jesus said, I am gentle and lowly, then that's really important for us to think on and to understand as Christians. If you ever struggle with guilt, shame, not feeling like God actually loves you or could forgive you or could want you, this book is essential. That is where I was coming from when I first read this book. Legalism, judgment, shame, always things that I've struggled with. And this book really broke down for me just how much God really loves me. It might sound like a boring book topic. You're like, yeah, I get it. God loves me. Don't really need to read about that. Just like this cover is beautiful, this book is so beautiful. Each chapter goes through a different way that God cares about us, a different way that he ministers to us, that his entire being and posture of his heart is to care for us and have compassion for us as his people. It is so beautiful. So again, if you've ever struggled with any of those things, please read this book. I absolutely love it. It made me cry multiple times just reflecting on God's goodness. It did definitely take me a while to work through because each chapter really made me think, really made me dig into those deep parts of my hearts where there were lies and untruths that were lingering about shame and guilt. And this book really cuts to the quick, and it takes you deep into your heart to understand just how much God loves you. And so that can be difficult, but it is so fruitful, so gracious of God to gift us with books like this. I'm forever indebted to Dane Ortlund for this book, and am now reading his next book, Deeper, which has a similar beautiful cover. So I'm looking forward to it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for just hanging out with me today, hearing a little bit about my favorite books. I would love to hear about your favorite books down in the comments below. Please let me know down there what you're reading, what you've enjoyed. If you've read any of these books, what you thought, if they were as impactful for you as they were for me. I'd love to hear about it. Talking about books is one of my favorite things. I am praying that you have a lovely day, that you feel the presence of Jesus today, that you know how much he loves you, and that you are growing in him going into this new year. So I will see you soon and can't wait to hear from you.